She's the one who does. But I mean, Christian said that he was taking
I was listening to it on the way up. Okay.
the Kremlin is just having a hard time. They're doing articles. I know, yeah. I don't know if that's it, but yeah, he's got something. Yeah, he's really something going on. Yeah. What does Trump have on Go and look up Lincoln's speech on the floor 2 years ago. What he said, what he said about Ukraine. Well,
Hey, why don't y'all protest for America instead of Ukraine? Well, I am. I just laid it down while yeah, Trump and Musk. Get rid of both of them. I'm very Yeah, the capital.
There's somebody with
Harmony. What's on the other side is justice is not negotiable. Yeah. This one was for last time. I'm here. I know. This is my time, but this is all where do I start? Well, thank you. It's a
better photo. Get in line.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Susan. Yeah. Alabama. Where we are today.
Love, not hate, makes America great. 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 Love, not hate, makes America great.
Yes. Yes.
The money changes nothing.
Good morning, Mississippi. How are y'all? Wait a minute. This is Mississippi. Good morning, Mississippi. How are you? Who out here loves this democracy? Who out here is willing to fight for this democracy? Who out here is willing to use your First Amendment right to freedom of speech to defend this democracy? Then I'm with you. Look, I'm out here because I think it's important that when we see things going wrong in our government, when we see that our leaders are not standing up for us the way we want them to stand up for us, we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to let them know that they're not in charge. They're not in charge. We are in charge. We run this. And you being here today is an example of that. My name is Ty Pickens. I am a veteran, served 21 years on active duty, 3 combat tours. I am a lawyer. I'm a candidate for United States Senate. And I'm a proud son of Mississippi. Recently, Governor J.B. Pritzker from Illinois said, tyranny requires your fear, your silence, and compliance. But democracy requires your courage. Democracy requires your courage. Throughout history, every generation has faced a defining moment. A moment when democracy was threatened. And the people had to choose whether to stand up or stand aside. In 1776, the founding fathers declared independence from tyranny, risking everything to create a government of the people, by the people, for the people. In 1863, Abraham Lincoln stood on the battlefield at Gettysburg. He reminded a nation at war that democracy must not perish from the earth. In 1944, young Americans from small communities all over this country stormed the beaches of Normandy to defend freedom from fascism. In 1965, civil rights activists marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge demanding that America live up to its promise of equality and justice for all. And now, our generation is being called, not by history books, not by presidents or generals, but by the crisis unfolding before our very eyes. Because today, in 2025, our democracy is under attack. Not from a foreign invader, not from an armed rebellion, but from an enemy within. An enemy within who swore to uphold our Constitution. We are in the middle of a coup. I will say that because it appears to me that it's difficult for some of our leaders to say it out loud. We are in the middle of a coup. A coup is not always defined by tanks in the streets. A coup can be slow, creepy, disguised as politics as usual. A coup can be the deliberate dismantling of democratic institutions, the subversion of the rule of law, and the consolidation of power by elected and unelected elites. Cue Elon Musk. That is exactly what is happening right now. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and sadly some of our own elected leaders are executing this coup. And they are doing it in plain sight. Worse, many in Congress are either enabling or outright supporting what's happening to our democracy. You see it just like I see it. And don't take my word for it, take Donald Trump's word for it. He said it himself at a rally last year. We have to take people, when they tell us something, we have to believe them. We have to believe these people. At a rally last year, he told his supporters, quote, "You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, and you won't have to vote anymore," end quote. He literally said that. Let that sink in. Because that was not a campaign promise, that was a decree. What kind of leader tells the people they will never have to vote again? A dictator. What kind of leader undermines democracy while pretending to save it? A tyrant. Trump's campaign wasn't about winning an election. It was about eliminating elections altogether. And he is not laying the ground, and now he is laying the groundwork to end democracy as we know it. And we don't have to look far to see where this road leads. History has shown us this pattern before. The warning signs are clear. A dictator doesn't seize power all at once. They do it step by step. First, they attack the truth, turning lies into weapons and silencing those who dare expose them. They silence the press. Donald Trump has banned the Associated Press from the White House press briefings, the Oval Office, and Air Force One. His administration has removed major news outlets like NBC, the New York Times, NPR, and Politico from the Pentagon press briefings, replacing them with propaganda outlets that align with his ideology. The Associated Press is now suing the White House over access to presidential events. Since when does a free press have to sue the president just to do their job? This is not the action of a president who respects the First Amendment's freedom of speech and freedom of press. This is the behavior of a dictator. And a dictator who silences the press does not stop there. When a leader fears accountability, they do not just attack the free flow of information. Adolf Hitler purged military leadership in Germany, forcing out commanders who resisted his authoritarian ambition. He replaced them with officers who would blindly obey his orders. Sound familiar? That paved the way for war, mass atrocities, and the destruction of democracy in Germany. And now Donald Trump is following the same playbook. His first step, appointing the most unqualified person in history to lead the Department of Defense. Trump nominated Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, and Senate Republicans confirmed him without hesitation, despite his complete lack of qualifications for the role. Hegseth has never held a senior leadership position in the military or the Pentagon. He has no experience managing the world's largest defense budget or the world's most powerful military. His only credentials are being a right-wing media personality and an unwavering Trump loyalist. Think about this. Since the position of Secretary of Defense was created in 1947 after World War II, no one as dangerously unqualified as Hegseth has ever held the job. So my question is, why now? Because Trump doesn't want a competent Secretary of Defense, he wants a yes man. And now he has one who is purging the military. He fired top military leaders, replacing them with less experienced officers who will capitulate to his wishes. He forced out top JAG lawyers, replacing them with lawyers who will justify his unlawful and unethical actions. Hegseth himself made it clear why they were fired. On national television, he said, quote, "So they don't exist to be roadblocks to anything that happens," end quote. Think about that. Think about that. The Secretary of Defense fired the top leaders, legal minds in the military, not because they failed in their duties, but because they might try to stop Trump from doing something illegal. Why does the president purge military leadership and legal advisors? Because he's prepared to order them to do unconstitutional and unethical things. I will repeat that. Why does the president purge military leadership and legal advisors? Because he is preparing to order them to do unconstitutional and unethical things. This is what despots do before they use the military against their own people. Are we supposed to believe that this is normal? Are we supposed to sit back and trust a man who has already attempted to overthrow the government once, won't try to do it again? What do you think he's preparing to do? This isn't just corruption, this is preparation for something far worse. Because Trump's assault on our democracy doesn't stop with the military. It extends to the very foundation of our country, the principle that no one man should ever have absolute power. Our nation was born out of rejection of monarchy. In 1776, our founding fathers declared independence from King George III. They rejected the idea that a single ruler could hold unchecked power over the people. They fought a war to ensure that no one man would ever have absolute control over this nation. They enshrined that principle in our Constitution, creating a delicate balance between federal and state powers. The 10th Amendment reserves to the states all powers not delegated to the federal government. That prevents any president from wielding total authority. And yet, Donald Trump has trampled on states' rights and even declared himself a king. I'm not the only person that heard that. I'm not the only person that heard him do that. He has hinted at having authority over state decisions, undermining the autonomy of state governments. After interfering in state matters in New York, he proclaimed himself the king. This showcased his disregard for the constitutional limits of his office. And it doesn't stop there. In direct conflict with the 22nd Amendment, which limits U.S. presidents to 2 terms, Trump and his supporters have openly floated the idea of a 3rd term. Am I the only person that heard it? I'm not the only person that heard it. They have openly floated that. He has repeatedly suggested extending his presidency beyond 2 terms, conditioning his followers to accept the idea of a dictatorship. His allies have openly embraced this notion, pushing the false narrative that he deserves additional time in office. One of them even constructed a bill to introduce to Congress for this guy to run for a 3rd term. Am I the only person that saw it? No. We have to take these people seriously. We do. What kind of leader dismisses the Constitution, rejects term limits, and crowns himself a king, a tyrant, a dictator? This is not just an overreach of power. It is a direct assault on the foundational principles of our republic. And if we don't stop him now, what's to stop him from taking a 4th term, a 5th term, a presidency for life? Our nation began by refusing the rule of a king. Are we really going to let it end by us bowing down to one? History tells us what happens when power goes unchecked. And history is calling on us now to stop it. But Trump is not acting alone. Every would-be king needs an enabler. Someone willing to tear down every safeguard that stands in the way. Someone who will put personal power over the country. Someone who will use wealth, influence, and unchecked ambition to reshape the government in their own image. And who is that person today? Elon Musk, a billionaire with no government authority, now has access to our personal information. While his companies have raked in over $18 billion in taxpayer money, he calls everyday struggling Americans, you, parasites. What? Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. A person that has companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, all of these companies that has contracts with the federal government to the tune of over $20 billion, not just dollars, American taxpayer dollars. Over $20 billion American taxpayer dollars he's putting in his pocket with the right hand, but with the left hand he's holding the microphone, calling those same taxpayers parasites. That makes me upset. That makes me very upset. And I went away from my script, and my wife told me not to do it. I fought for this country, 3 combat tours. Just like many of your family members, your fathers, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers, your sons, and your daughters today. Excuse me because I get emotional. We fought for this country. We fought for this country. We fought to defend democracy in foreign lands where we didn't speak the language. Generations before us fought and died for this democracy. And I'd be damned if I'm gonna let someone who wasn't born in this country, who is benefiting to the tune of billions of dollars from taxpayer money, call my American neighbors and sisters and brothers parasites. No. What makes me even more upset is the fact that he said this on social media, on national television, and we got elected officials like Cindy Hyde-Smith and Roger Wicker, and they still a word to defend you. Not one word. Not one word. Their job, and I know I'm getting emotional. Their job, they get paid to represent you, to represent your kids. They get paid to make sure that this democracy is stable for your grandchildren. A man just called American citizens parasites, and they didn't say nothing. Not a word. Not a word. They're scared of the wrong people. They're scared of Trump. They should be scared of you. That's what they should be afraid of. Elon Musk is financially entangled with China to the tune of over $1 billion in loans. Did you know that? He is in regular contact with Vladimir Putin. Why is a man with direct ties to both Putin and the Chinese government controlling our White House? This is not just corruption. This is a national security crisis. This is a coup. But as dangerous as Musk's influence is, a coup does not succeed through power alone. It requires the destruction of accountability. No coup can survive if there are independent watchdogs in place. Independent watchdogs exposing corruption, fraud, and law breaking. That is why Trump's next move was to eliminate the watchdogs. Throughout American history, inspectors general have served as independent watchdogs, ensuring that government agencies operate ethically, lawfully, and in the public interest. They exist to investigate fraud, corruption, and abuse of power, and to hold those in power accountable. So what does a corrupt leader do when the law and those watchdogs start closing in? They fire them. That is exactly what Donald Trump has done, and Elon Musk. One by one, they have purged inspector generals from multiple federal agencies, especially the federal agencies investigating Elon Musk. Labor and workplace protection, good. The Department of Labor and the Labor National Relations Board were investigating Tesla and SpaceX for labor violations and retaliations against employees. Trump fired them and shut down the investigation. Y'all saw it. Consumer protection, eliminated. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was handling hundreds of complaints about Tesla's financial practices. Trump fired the director and closed the agency's doors. Election integrity, undermine. The Federal Election Commission was probing Musk's America PAC for potential elections fraud. Trump removed the FEC chair. National security, compromise. The DOD and DOJ flagged Elon Musk's foreign ties to China and Russia and SpaceX hiring and discrimination. Trump fired the watchdog and gutted the DOJ leadership. Financial regulations, blocked. The SEC was investigating Musk for stock fraud, but Trump forced out the SEC chair, leaving Musk-friendly leadership in place. The agencies responsible for protecting workers, consumers, taxpayers, the environment, national security, and elections have been gutted. And in their place, nothing but chaos, corruption, and cover-ups. Let's call this what it is: an organized effort to shield Elon Musk from oversight. Plain as day. To shield him from oversight, eliminate accountability, and consolidate power. And now the wealthiest man on the planet, who wasn't even born here, and taking over $20 billion in contracts from the U.S. government, and I'll say it again, it's called everyday Americans. Parasites. Parasites. Simply because you rightfully expect the benefits your tax dollars have paid into Social Security. And when he called you a parasite, I said before, neither one of our elected leaders stood up. Not your congressman in your district, first, fourth, second, third, neither one of them said a word. Neither one of them. No. Neither one of our senators said a word. Our governor didn't even say a word. What if somebody knocked on your door at your house You opened the door, and they looked at you and told you, you know what, your family and your children are parasites. Would you stand up for your family? Why aren't our leaders standing up for us? Why does Elon Musk think he deserves immunity from the law? Why are Trump and Musk working together to dismantle the very agencies that protect us? What happens when there is no one left? What happens when there is no one to hold the power of the powerful accountable? We are standing at a dangerous crossroad. If they succeed in eliminating oversight, then democracy, fairness, and justice will cease to exist. This is not about politics. This is about corruption. This is not about business. This is about power. And this is not an accident. This is a coup which does not stop at silencing the press, seizing control of the military, or eliminating oversight. Their next, and I believe their final step, is dismantling the rule of law itself and unleashing an all-out assault on American democracy. I will close with this. History has taught us one undeniable truth. A democracy that is not defended is a democracy that will not survive. In the fall of 1787, when the Constitutional Convention concluded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a woman asked Benjamin Franklin, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy? Franklin's response was both simple and profound when he replied, a republic if we can keep it. A republic if we can keep it. Those words were not just an observation, they were a warning. A republic is not guaranteed. It must be protected, fought for, and defended by those who cherish it, you. And now the question is not what Franklin and the founders gave us. The real question is, what are we willing to do to keep it? When King George III sought to rule over us without our consent, everyday people, farmers, artisans, merchants, and laborers stood up and fought for a new nation. One founded on liberty, justice, and the power of the people. When Lincoln warned that a house divided against itself cannot stand, everyday people took up the cause of freedom, marching, sacrificing, and uniting to preserve this republic. When fascism threatened the world, everyday people stormed the beaches of Normandy, determined to defend democracy from tyranny. When segregation and oppression denied millions their basic rights, everyday people marched on Washington, sat at lunch counters, crossed bridges, and demanded change. And so I ask you today, will we fight for our democracy or will we let it slip away? I'm going to ask you again, will we fight for our democracy or will we let it slip away? Will we sit back and wait or will we stand up to this coup? Will we remain silent in the face of injustice or will we unite and reclaim the future that rightfully belongs to us? Because we cannot sit back and hope someone else will fix this. We are who we have been waiting for. I'll repeat that. We are who we have been waiting for. Because history shows us that coups succeed when people do nothing. And right now, by being here today, raising your voices in solidarity, you are doing something. I think that's so important. History has shown us that coups succeed when people do nothing. And right now, by being here today, raising your voices in solidarity, you are doing something. This is our generation's fight. And like the generations before us, we will not back down. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, a time comes when silence is betrayal. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. This is not the time to be silent. This is the time to speak out. This is not the time to sit back. This is the time to rise up. This is not the time to be complacent. This is the time to do what Americans have always done when our liberty and freedom have been threatened. Protest in every state, in every city, in every town. Demand that Congress stand up for us. Force them to choose a side. Call your representatives. Call your senators. Email them. Show up at their offices. Knock on their doors. Make it clear that they work for us, and we will hold them accountable. Stand up. Speak out. March. Protest. Organize. Demand justice. Take back our country. Because democracy doesn't die in one moment, it dies when good people do nothing. And we, the good people of this country, will never let that happen. As an army officer, I proudly raised my hand and swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I swore that oath over a 21-year military career. Proud, and I will do it again. And I did it because this is my democracy. This is your democracy. This is my children's democracy. This is your children's democracy. This is our democracy. And we will fight for it. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our troops. And God bless the United States of America.
Native and proud Mississippian. I'm here because our democracy is under threat, because our fellow Americans' lives are getting worse and worse by the day. As I stand here before you today, I don't really care who you vote for in 2026. I appreciate Mr. Pickens. I wish him good luck. I'll probably be voting for him too. But let me tell you something. What matters as we stand here today is what we do in the next 40 days, in the next week, in the next month, in the next 40 days, in the next however long. The point is, we I have a lot to say, but I'm going to try but today I want to stick primarily on talking the Trump tax cuts. Both the House and the Senate have passed resolutions to form a blueprint for these tax cuts to happen. But it's not a done deal yet, and it's dependent on all of us here, all Mississippians with goodwill, and all Americans with goodwill, to make our voices heard so that these tax cuts don't go into effect. All of our Republican congressional delegations, from Senator Wicker to Senator Hyde-Smith, Congressman Guest, Congressman Kelly, Congressman Ezell, they support these tax cuts. And along with Trump, they have promised Mississippians that these tax cuts will mean more money in the pockets of hardworking Americans and hardworking Mississippians. So I don't know about you, but when I think about hardworking Mississippians, in my mind that conjures up images of truck drivers, construction workers, cashiers, paramedics, nurses, high school football coaches, military service personnel, veterans. What else? Teachers. Teachers. Police officers, firefighters, you clergy, artists, journalists. Yes, absolutely. This is what I think about when I think of hardworking American people. So I think a lot of Mississippians, indeed plenty of Americans, believed when Republicans told them that voting for Trump would mean more money in the pockets of hardworking Americans. A lot of people believed that meant them. Were they wrong? Yeah, they were wrong. They were wrong. You know why? Because they were being lied to. So, this board over here illustrates what these tax cuts will mean for Americans if they pass. If we don't get loud and do something to stop it. And before I get into the details of this beautiful infographic that my friend Heidi put together, I want to make one thing clear. I don't begrudge the wealthy. I don't begrudge the super wealthy. There's some wealthy people in the rich. But I also have lots of friends and family and loved ones who fall in those categories of hardworking Americans. What I begrudge is wealthy getting a break at the expense of 90% of our country. 95% of our country. What I begrudge is wealthy people getting a tax cut at the expense of our very important and very much imperfect social safety net. So let's look at these numbers. And all of this information comes from the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, and their numbers are based on numbers from the U.S. Department of Treasury Office of Tax Analysis, from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So don't let anybody try to spin these numbers. The wealthiest 1% of American income earners, they make $743,000 a year, and some of them a whole lot more. The tax cuts are going to afford them an extra $60,000 a year. You know what that means? That's a whole salary for most Americans. Yes, that's exactly right. Yes. You know what else that means? It's $5,000 extra a month. You know what those super rich people can do with that? That's enough to pay the monthly mortgage note on an $800,000 second home. And what's going to happen to the rest of Americans? So if you look over here at the sign April's holding, the folks who fall into an income range of $157,000 to $320,000 a year, those are still really wealthy people relative to the rest of Americans. In fact, they're the 80th to 95th percentile of Americans. You know what kind of tax break they're going to get? They're going to get $3,100 a year, which amounts to $260 a month. So, you know, that's the equivalent of like a gym membership for a family of four, and maybe pizza delivery for your family one Friday night. Yeah, maybe you can buy an extra parking lot. But if you're in the fourth quintile or below, so if you're making $96,000 a year to $157,000 a year, you know what you're going to get back in your pocket? Because Republicans promised you a lot of money back in your pocket. You're going to get the equivalent of 3 days of groceries for a whole month under these tax cuts. But even worse, if you fall into this category of $31,000 to $60,000 a month, I'd say those are hardworking Americans. Do you know what Trump and his Republican supporters in Congress think you should get? 8 loaves And I firmly believe that most Americans are not fine with these huge tax cuts for the wealthy and a few scraps for the people I would call hardworking Americans and hardworking Mississippians. Even if you're okay with this, what you should not be okay with, and no person of goodwill should be okay with, is what these tax cuts are going to do for the very fabric of our social safety net in America. Currently, Congress is contemplating $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid to fund these tax cuts. It might not be cuts to Medicaid, it might be cuts to your Social Security, it might be cuts to Medicare. We don't know for sure, but it is going to be cuts to benefits upon which millions of Americans depend just to get by. In Mississippi, if it's $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid, in Mississippi, it's going to be about $1 billion per year over the next 9 years. What do you think that's going to do for our already struggling issue of physician and nursing retention? People will die. Already, this is based on information from UNC. In fact, that's authorized by the legislators behind us a few years ago. UNC tells us that in order for Mississippi to have an adequate physician to patient ratio, we need another 1,300 physicians in the state of Mississippi. But what do our Republican leaders want to do? They want to cut Medicaid funding by $1 billion a year. And let's just clear up. Medicaid is not a handout to poor people. It's not a cash payment. It is literally insurance. So when people go to the hospital and they're on Medicaid and they get treatment, the hospital bills Medicaid and Medicaid sends money directly to the hospital to cover that cost of care. But what Republicans in this state and all over the nation want to do is they want to cut that funding in Mississippi to the tune of $1 billion. And so that means their hospitals aren't going to have money to hire doctors. Physician practices aren't going to be able to make it. Has anybody raised your hand if in the last few years you've been in the hospital with a loved one or had one who's critically ill and you've been told there's not a bed available? There's not a bed available, so you're going to not get transport from your rural community to Twin City or wherever you're going in Jackson. They're not even going to let you leave your town until there's a bed available. And if you're in the ER, if you're already here in Jackson, you're lucky enough to be here, you're going to sit in the emergency room and wait, and wait, and wait until there's a bed available. Who knows what there's not a bed available actually means? Does it really mean there's not a bed available? It means there's not a doctor and there's not nursing staff to take care of you. Let me tell you from personal experience, that is a horrible position to be in. When your loved one is critically ill and there's nobody around to treat them, that's all. And that is something that is going to affect, that already does affect every single one of us Mississippians, regardless of how much money we have. So cuts to Medicaid, bad for Mississippi, bad for retention of and recruitment of physicians and nurses. It's really bad for the disabled who depend on Medicaid to live independently, like my buddy Dr. Crawford back there waving at me, and all of his friends here. So Medicaid pays for them to have care in their home so they can live independently. And if Medicaid is cut,
Freedom itself.
Medicaid funding for people like Scott Crawford is freedom itself. And if that funding is cut, beautiful Americans like Scott Crawford and his friends will be left at home to fend for themselves. Cuts to Medicaid in Mississippi will mean that 3 out of every 4 nursing home residents in the state will not be able to afford that nursing home. A lot of people also think that Medicaid is just for poor people, but it's not. It's for the disabled, regardless of income. It's for a lot of middle and upper income people who need nursing home care. What's going to happen to the nursing home industry if all of a sudden 75% of its patients disappear? How many jobs are we going to lose? If you pay cash for your nursing home care, how much more expensive is that going to get? If you pay cash for your nursing home care, is there even going to be a nursing home open to serve you? So these are just a few reasons why Medicaid cuts to fund tax cuts for the wealthy are terrible. I got to figure out where I'm going next.
Like the single payer, medical care is a right, not a commodity.
All right. So what do we do? Ty and I did not actually coordinate on our speeches at all. In fact, I just met Ty for the first time this morning. But man, we're speaking from the same. We're singing from the same hymnal. Yeah. What we do is we recognize that it is our job as Americans in this moment to make our voices heard. It is our job as citizens of this great nation to educate our fellow Americans. It is our job as people who want America to continue to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, to make our elected officials uncomfortable. Make them uncomfortable until they start doing, and I recognize it's going to be difficult, until they start doing the difficult work that it will take to turn this ship around. As the former pastor at my church, Northminster Baptist Church, is known to say, he's a great man named Chuck Poole, it's our job as people of goodwill, and I don't care what religious faith you come from, it is our job as people of goodwill to sit down with those people Jesus would sit down with, and to stand up for those people Jesus would stand up for. Speaking of Jesus, some of you may know that today is Mardi Gras. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody! This also means that tomorrow is Ash Wednesday, which marks the first day of Lent. A lot of Christians observe Lent, which is that season of 40 days on the church calendar that commemorates, among other things, the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness. Many Christians observe Lent as a time of prayer and fasting and almsgiving, as a way to grow their relationship with God. I'm not here to tell anybody they need to start observing Lent. You're welcome. A lot of people for Lent, they might give up something like cussing, drinking, or they might commit to reading a book every night or getting off social media. You've got lots of options. But I have a better idea. And this is an idea for all of us, regardless of our faith. How about, regardless of our faith, let's all commit the next 40 days to giving up complacency, and complicity. How about for the next 40 days, let's all commit to making those phone calls, to sending those emails, to having hard conversations, to posting more on social media than stupid memes, to educating ourselves. If there's an issue that you wonder about or that you're concerned about, Google it. Learn about what ICE is doing to our immigrant families in America and why it's so wrong and in fact illegal. Learn about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Make yourself some talking points. Make yourself learn a two-sentence spiel about whatever the issue is. But we have to get loud and we have to make people uncomfortable until things turn around. Learn about what the ramifications are of cuts to HUD. Let's be clear about something. I mean, I think most of us are here because we care about, maybe poor people and we want to make sure they have housing. But Republicans, and especially wealthy folks, should understand cuts to HUD are also going to be terrible for real estate developers who build low-income housing, right? And what about those jobs? What about the construction workers who build those developments? We've got to understand so that we can educate others about all the ramifications of the madness that is happening. Educate ourselves about what's happening to trans children and their families. Raise your hand here if you have children. So, if you have children, no matter how old they are, you know how hard life can be, even under the best of circumstances. If you've got plenty of money, you don't fear job loss, your kids are getting a good education, they're good little athletes, they're nice kids, they've got friends, they've got a good church group, whatever. You've got all the good things that you can possibly make for your kids. It's still hard, it's not? And so we need to think about, on top of that, what do these policies mean for families who have the added struggle of a child who's an other, of a child who has a different gender identity, of a child who doesn't speak English as a first language, of a child who has a medical disability, a learning disability, you name it. All of these people, all of these children and their families are going to suffer. They're already suffering if we don't get loud and do something about it. Finally, we need to know and we need to educate people and we need to get loud with our congressional delegation about what in the world, literally, does it mean for the United States to turn its back on Ukraine. Because let me tell you something, there are a lot of people who don't get it. My friend in Iowa tells me that there are folks in rural communities who once were flying Trump flags. You know what they're flying now? Russian flags. For shame. All right, so can we all commit to 40 days? And every day you do something. You do something to not be complacent and to not be complicit. For 40 days, every day, you do something to make your voice heard. You do something every single day, 40 days, to stand up, let me get it right, to sit down for the people Jesus would sit down with, and to stand up for the people Jesus would stand up with. Thank you all. health insurance programs that I utilize to keep my daughters healthy, and the threat to federal student aid programs, which I utilize to become the first person in my family to receive a college degree, and that my daughter is currently using on her own college degree. And my soon-to-be 81-year-old grandmother uses safeguard programs to survive. If her Social Security check doesn't come, she loses her home. And without Medicaid, she won't even have the opportunity to care for a nursing home if needed. And dismantling the Department of Education will have impact on oversight of IDEA and ADA that will put my own daughter with autism at risk, along with the multitude of students that I've dedicated my life to serving as an educator for the last 18 years. I have friends and family in the LGBTQ community, of which I've always been an ally, and their rights are being stripped away. And the narrative on our immigrants is that they're criminals when they're here trying to make a better life for themselves. And I, for one, view people as humans first. And Trump has chosen to cozy up with the dictators of the world, making America a laughingstock. And one point that is especially offensive to me is when you look at the Trump Project 25 playbook, they are coming for women. And I never have and never will need a man to handle my finances or tell me what to do with my own body, and I certainly don't need anyone to tell me the role in my family. That is why I'm here today. All Mississippians will be negatively impacted by the outrageous Trump administration, whether they want to admit it or not. My hope is to give Mississippi a space to voice their ideas and engage in their constitutional right to freedom of speech. There's nothing that the Trump administration is doing that is efficient, and I stand for a government that is by the people, of the people, and for the people. And again, thank y'all for being here today. And in the end, I thought maybe we could just line the sidewalk and do it one of the elections. And then they will hear the people say, thank you. Hey guys, one thing I forgot to say is I have little pamphlets, little cards that have this infographic on the front and more detail about customer social services on the back. There are literally tons of them in that basket over there. So help yourself and take as many as long as you promise to use them and share them with others. Okay.
I'm afraid my friend group is past that. Okay, are we going around? I've got to go teach again. Like four of my students are here. They've already graduated. Bye-bye.
starting at almost here.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it's the highway that goes from New Albany to Oxford.